All right, let's start taking seats. I mean, I know my opinion may be biased, but I really think that at ZKProof we get one of the best foods in conferences. I think it's like on purpose, so it's a good thing. It gets people to come back again next year. All right, seems like we're getting still a little bit settled and more people are coming in, but I think we're gonna start. So this is gonna be a little bit of a special panel. Some of you, maybe most of you know that I like to do little experiments, maybe little games. Last year we had a couple of things in Tel Aviv as well, and we had the Crypto Lounge event in Barcelona, which was full of games, for those of you that were here. So we're gonna do a little bit of a kind of, I call it the broken panel. And it's gonna be a bit of a game around kind of like rotating in the panel. So yes, that includes all of you. Anyone here could be potentially part of this panel. So that's exciting. And we're gonna talk about privacy, but many different aspects of privacy, some more controversial than others, some more personal than others. And we have a couple of cool things. So first, I'm gonna invite our first two speakers that I invited them for this purpose. So Dara Emma Hopwood and Yingtong Lai, please join me here. Awesome. So just gonna explain very quickly and briefly the rules of the game, of the broken panel. So everybody that comes up here is going to start, there's going to be about 5 to 8 minutes or so if each person. So we're going to have at least three or four rotations. It's going to be kind of one leaves, one comes kind of thing. So there's going to be some continuity. And every person that comes up is going to start speaking by describing yourselves or themselves as a cryptographic scheme or as a potential ZKP or a privacy protocol or application. Okay, so if you've ever dreamt and have a totem cryptographic scheme, this is your time, right? So can just give a small example. I find myself identifying with leveled homomorphic encryption scheme, as I feel like sometimes I can read between the lines and even look at the behind the scenes of things even when they're not very clear. I hope that worked. So you're gonna be here.
Thanks for drop us in it.
I'm gonna ask some questions, and the participants can actually ask questions as well between them. This is a conversation. We're here to enjoy it. And after a specific amount of time, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, when I see maybe the conversation is fading or when you choose to delegate your seat, you're gonna leave by asking the person that comes a question. That it just needs to be in flow with the conversation. Okay? I think those are all the rules. Kind of invented the game not long ago, but let's see if it works. I have some people in mind that could come up, but if you're very interested, I'll ask, and you can raise your hand if you're interested in coming up. So let's start. I will ask first Yingtong a question that you can start by explaining what your motive is. So why do you care about privacy?
Okay, so if I were a cryptographic scheme, it would be NPC in the head. It's other voices in my head. And I also operate well over Boolean fields.
That's funny.
Yeah, and why I care about privacy is I think it's just necessary for democracy to to allow people to organize anonymously and to allow people to develop viewpoints that deviate from, you know, what's allowed, what's legal, because, you know, things can become illegal overnight, like abortion or like, you know, medication for like trans people. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think probably Diffie-Hellman, because it was kind of a resistance to the status quo. As people were trying to, the government was trying to suppress it. Yeah, except with not patented. And why do I think that privacy is important? I mean, all the reasons that Yingtong said, but let me try and express them in my own words. I think that you need privacy to be able to think and to sort of have freedom of association and to express your ideas, not necessarily in public, but because the step before expressing your ideas in public is to express them with friends and to be able to bounce ideas that may be controversial off friends, or maybe your ideas are already illegal. So just recently, I was organizing an event about hormones. This was a peer event for trans people in Manchester to learn about HRT. And some transphobic people learnt about this event, turned up and tried to disrupt it. Unfortunately, we had some people on the door who were able to turn them away, some good allies. And so we need to be able to communicate in private so that things like that, I mean, they may still happen. You may still get your enemies finding out about something, but you need to be able to organize in private. I've got a tattoo on my arm here that says, "Everybody's right to beautiful, radiant things." The first part of that quote, it's a quote by Emma Goldman. It says, "I want freedom, the right to self-expression, everybody's right to beautiful, radiant things." That was what anarchism meant to me. And anarchism is kind of a controversial idea that sometimes needs to be discussed in private. Okay, I think that was a complete answer.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So what are really the challenges today going into privacy? Like, you can speak technical, you can speak societal. What resonates most with you that you would say, like, this is a big blocker today?
It's too difficult to design and deploy cryptography that other people can understand and be confident is secure. Deployed protocols are making too many mistakes.
So in a way, like, privacy is like failing at first sight. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, we have some good protocols. We have some very smart people designing protocols. But we also have, I mean, especially in the blockchain space, we also have a lot of snake oil and stuff that is pretending to be good cryptography, not to put too fine a point on it. And yeah, we need some way for users of cryptography. They will still have to trust experts, but they should be able to trust experts on a more sound basis than they can at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Yingtong?
Yeah, for sure the communication around protocols that claim to be private is, I think, it can be very misleading and harmful. For example, Telegram, which is not encrypted by default, or for example, Facebook Messenger, which was not end-to-end encrypted. I think they've changed that now.
I don't know about group chats. I think private one-to-one chats are encrypted by default. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Similar to Telegram.
Yes. So I think it's like privacy washing. And wait, I had another point about privacy washing.
Yeah, there's a lot of encryption that is not actually end-to-end.
Oh, wait. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a lot of encryption that there's not end-to-end, but is kind of implied to be. I know Zoom got in trouble with. I'm not going to sort of beat around the bush. I'm going to name names here. Was called out on sort of calling their stuff end-to-end encryption when it wasn't.
Right. And there's more like nuanced privacy washing as well. So, for example, like a lot of differential privacy when applied to machine learning, like the end result of that is still allowing like some classifier or recommender to target you better.
Yeah.
And even though they were operating on like differentially private data or like what encrypted data, the end result is still like a decrease in privacy for the user.
And sometimes people's stated goals are dystopian.
So we're going to proceed to do our first change. Thank you both. Maybe Ying Tong, would you like to think of a question while someone here wants to join us? Any volunteers? Should I call out some names? No one? Really? Okay. Oh, there you go. Come on.
Who is this? Oh, Johannes. So what is your take on like privacy in CBDCs, such as the digital euro?
Nice. Thank you, Ying Tong. Thanks a lot. Big applause for Ying Tong. And welcome, Johannes.
Thank you.
Make sure you give your totem cryptography scheme.
Yeah, so I guess I would be a hash-based ZKP system. I spend a lot of time trying to explain in detail to regulators and businesses how cryptography works and how to use it in blockchains and so on. So proving is a lot of effort, and the thing that turns out to be is then like a hopefully succinct paper. But actually, because of the trade-offs you need to do, like you try to optimize on the proving time, and then the paper gets a bit longer. So in the end, it seems to be a hash-based scheme.
Good metaphor.
I know this from the Sphinx paper.
Yeah, so CBDCs, that's a very good question. So I think from the regulator standpoint, there are a few aspects that are non-negotiable. So having a scheme like Zcash, for instance, directly from a money laundering perspective, unfortunately, is not accepted, at least by those central banks that
No surrender.
Yeah, but we can inherit a lot of the tricks that were, for example, introduced by Zcash. So, I mean, first step was to introduce a transaction-based limit. That would be trivial to implement, but unfortunately, because you can do as many transactions as you would like to have, it doesn't give us a lot. So
that's why we didn't implement it.
Yeah. So actually, it turns out that thresholds on turnover are something to consider. So for instance, a certain privacy budget that every month you can spend 1,000 euros anonymously, and anything that exceeds that needs to be disclosed to some tax authority, bank, some custodian for additional information that could be queried in case of a lawsuit, for instance. And then
You could use a ZKP to prove it.
Exactly. So basically, you prove that for all the transactions that remain below this threshold, you incrementally add them up. You basically use commitments and nullifiers, but not for coins, but for account states. And so you can increment your balance over time.
How do you tie that to an identity, though? Because in Zcash, you can make up a new
identity.
and you keep anytime.
Yeah, so basically one of the findings of this research and also discussions with central banks was that strongly bound digital identity for citizens that is issued by the government is basically a prerequisite, which first sounds counterintuitive because like a unique identity is not seeming privacy oriented in the first place. But basically, because we have the corresponding tooling, if you have a strongly bound key pair and the digital certificate in a citizen's wallet, and this is what we will have in 2 years' time by the revision of the eIDAS regulation, we could potentially use this to create a zero-knowledge proof that we are still in possession of such a non-expired, non-revoked digital identity, and that basically the unique account that is connected with this digital identity has not surpassed a certain threshold within this month, for instance. And so you could create this in a privacy-preserving way. Main challenges will probably be that it's not clear if such a digital identity that we will have is open to use also with, like, for example, a blockchain. So you can basically sign anything you would like and not just interactions with dedicated verifiers that have also gone through some certification process. And the central bank was quite worried that you cannot really detect a bug, for example, in the soundness of the system if there was one. So they were demanding like additional assurances, like periodically emptying the privacy pool and then refilling it to make sure that no money is created out of thin air, which is not very elegant. So, but at least they are not completely foreclosed to the idea of having like a digital payment system that is privacy by design, as long as you can ensure that it doesn't give you the opportunity to evade any kind of money laundering and terrorist financing protection. But they're still pretty cautious and usually put security over privacy.
This is a good opportunity for me to put my position. It is extremely hard to design an adequately private protocol of any kind, but payment protocol in particular, even without any constraints on so-called compliance. And we need to be given the opportunity to design the thing that we have the best chance of making secure. No keys that are held by central authorities. That's critically important because the central authorities will not be able to keep those keys secure. Just think of the Snowden leaks. Even if you're on the NSA, you can't keep things secure.
But it's always a trade-off in some sense, right? Like we cannot expect it to be black or white completely. Like it needs to be somewhere in the middle. And for example, even when you think about multiple identities, we've seen that it can affect in the context of bots, for example, right? In the digital space. And so you do maybe want to have some kind of way to create a single identity for an individual, right?
But why does that have to be tied to payments?
General digital systems, just in general, any application, any kind of thing like that. I mean the idea that you can generate several addresses in Zcash is very powerful by itself, right? The linkability question is what you need to
And it is a critical security property. So the fact, for example, that you can keep addresses secret in Zcash is important for, that gives you post-quantum privacy, actually, in Zcash. But we were very careful to design the system so that was the case.
In Zcash, it's just that like the multiple addresses per secret key is an important feature for privacy, but multiple secret keys is more a feature of usability and accessibility, right? If there was a way to verify a specific identity and then give you a secret key, of course, if I understand the argument of not having central parties hold keys for the sake of not losing them and whatnot. But
I'm inclined to just not compromise on any of these issues.
Got it.
Because we need to make the case, the technical case, also to governments and regulators for why this is hard, why what they're asking for is not actually reasonable. And why you need payments to be private. because they have this idea that they are the good guys. They are not the good guys. You have to treat regulators as potential adversaries when you're doing protocol design. I said this at ZKon 5 recently. And one of the reasons you need to do that is that even if you have a regulator that is in theory perfectly trustworthy, and some portion of the population will trust them, what if their keys get leaked? Every party has to be treated as a potential party, a potential adversary. Every party in a protocol, always.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you very much. Do you have a question for someone?
Yes. Who am I asking a question to?
Who wants to come up? John? What are you asking, John?
I think John may have a response to my my question there. Yeah, what is your response to my question, to my position? Because I know that you have different opinions on this. I think I've already sort of explained my position, so what's your response?
Thank you, Dara. Before you answer, you need to explain, you need to say, who are you in terms of cryptographic?
In terms of cryptographic application, I would be definitely some form of identity scheme, in the sense that I strive to minimize what I take on as an identity. And I think zero-knowledge proof is the really bare minimum. You can, you know, have just a core thing and walk around in the digital world with derivations of that core identity. I think it's a helpful, healthy thing to try to take on as little identity as you can, so that you don't feel offended all the time.
Thank you.
So, talking about those pesky regulators, there's a lot of times where I find myself in complete, I hear a regulator or law enforcement actually agreeing 100% that you shouldn't give full power to the authorities. And what they have in mind is usually some foreign country that they think is horrible. So they will have an example in their mind of, and they don't realize that, no, I'm talking about you. You're the bad guy. But they will agree with you about like some non-Western, obvious, horrible regime, right? In which case the conversation can continue on how do we protect, you know, the details of the transactions and confidentiality and freedom of to operate in the digital space. Immediately shifts the conversation in a useful place. I think it's kind of dodging your question though, right? Yes, all right. So I'll go straight to the question. Why do some law enforcement and regulators elevate themselves morally above some other regulators and law enforcement from other places when repeatedly we see the bad stuff showing up? I don't have a generic answer. I have a pragmatic one, which is that as builders of systems, we have a responsibility to build systems that will be more used for good than for you know, nefarious things. And it's extremely difficult to realize if we are in this working point when we work on privacy technologies, because from our standpoint, we defend privacy when we launch, you know, networks, etc. But we cannot measure if it's misused or not. And there's a huge skew between our point of view and the point of view of, say, a law enforcement agent who only sees the bad uses and doesn't see the completely legitimate basic rights of all of us to transact without having like full visibility on everything we do.
Another pragmatic answer is, in my opinion, is kind of simple. It's like the same mistrust that some of us in society may have towards our own government, those governments have mistrust to other governments. Like trust and mistrust is kind of an inherent trait of humanity, and we just need to know how to overcome it. But sometimes through privacy, sometimes through good faith, sometimes through just being. What do you think, Johannes?
So I think that even within the governments, like there are very contrary positions, and it seems like, for example, in the EU, it's even like 50-50 already for end-to-end encryption. Like 50% would already like to ban end-to-end encryption and have device-side scanning. And I mean, with those kind of people, you don't even need to talk about payment because money laundering and terrorist financing is definitely less debatable. And then there's the other side, which is really open towards privacy-enhancing technologies and to use systems like Zcash as an inspiration. And so I think this like hybrid strategy in which on the one hand you build systems like outside the regulation to put some pressure and to demonstrate what is possible is a good thing, but it will be hard to get this into mass adoption. And then if you talk to regulators and you show the willingness to also converge towards some of the perspective of the regulators and to build some compliance checks into your constraint system, this can give you some acceptance. And I'm not sure if it is successful in the end, but hopefully what we get when we give those inspirations, what is technically possible, will be better than very shitty suggestions like, for example, the anonymity vouchers in which the central bank just promises that they don't look into the data and delete the data after 2 weeks, which is like completely useless from a system design perspective. And hopefully, I mean, if you don't show any willingness to compromise also on the system perspective, and you don't want to include additional constraints because they, of course, increase the attack surface, then you will probably not find a good solution with the government. So I think we can only benefit from approaching them, accepting additional complexity, which we definitely need if we want to merge like an identity system, for instance, into the solution. But on the other hand, what we get may be less good than like the optimal simple case, but still way better than the transparent payment system we have today.
Thank you, Johannes. Do you have a question for someone? Who would like to join us? I know there is a couple of people I also spoke to there in the back, maybe potentially to come up. If you're interested, you can raise your hand. I won't call you up unless there is no one else. No one?
Meanwhile, I do have a comment on the on why this debate is becoming even more important now. It won't surprise you. It has to do with AI. The balance of the things that a human needs to hold in their mind as they transact online has become even more complicated because the data that has been out there for collected on you and used against you is now really, really strongly exploited against you with means that you cannot even defend against. So it becomes even more crucial to have the, let's say, general infrastructure be non-transparent. It says nothing about the trust with the government, but at least commercially, you want to protect yourself from like over-exploitation of your data in transparent networks.
Please, Johannes, ask Kostas the question.
So one challenge I often observe is that the systems that are already deployed in the wild, which are maybe not privacy preserving, they are not really friendly to proving them in zero knowledge. And I know that you also have some experiences with TEEs. So I would be generally curious, do you think that the standardization in ZK will be fast enough to give like governments also access to standardized protocols that they can then ingrain in regulations such as EIDAS? Or do you think that the secure hardware may maybe overtake because it's like easier to understand and you can get some guarantees from manufacturers that maybe make a regulator's time easier?
Thank you, Johannes.
Great question.
See
how do I answer this?
What cryptographic totem are you? Did you get the rules in the beginning?
Yeah, I'm with Jonathan to tell you the truth. One of the issues that we faced even back at Facebook was
you need to say who you are based on a cryptographic protocol or a privacy application. If you had to identify yourself with one of these, this is part of the game.
On the spot. Boom.
I am.
John is an identity system. I'm a leveled homomorphic encryption scheme.
What I started to say is, I will say anonymous credential for now.
Good one.
I'm good. Safe. So yeah, very quickly on this, because I've personally explored it a lot from the very beginning, even with the biggest consortium literally 7, 8 years ago, like 100 banks trying to create something on privacy for the banking system. Although we have people here from ZKAS, and I know Daira might disagree with me, sometimes when we are talking to regulations and auditors, anything that has to do with financial incentives at the moment is more difficult to be the first application that they will accept in zero-knowledge proofs. Because this one opens the doors for many other things that they cannot, at least at the time, comprehend. And I believe, I don't know if it will be KYC or identity, something about identity at the very beginning, like proving you are over 18, like very simple statements, so they feel more comfortable first, because you can imagine the average person like working for a government public organization, maybe they're like enclosed between some particular rules they have to follow. And in order to press a check mark, especially in a public sector, it's not very easy. You have to go through too much bureaucracy. So because of this, I believe this is the main topic that they will accept it. Now, trust executed environments versus zero-knowledge proofs. I have a feeling that for a few years, I know from Google and some other funks in Bay Area, we're going to still keep using this, just because some of the operations they're trying to operate with is user data. And this user data is a lot of data that we might not be able to have very efficient circuits to accommodate them. And because of this, if the regulators are okay with TE, the companies obviously will do the easy thing. They will just go have an SGX, some services there, maybe slightly decentralized. If the regulator is fine with me, this is what I want to be compliant, right? This is how I see it.
Of course, if the NSA can get the certificates from Intel, they're going to be fine, right, to use the...
Yeah, but imagine the average company wants to be compliant first and then can do business. I have a feeling, however, but that the more we do, especially with the new outcomes very recently, I don't know, Circle Starks, some other optimizations here, we're catching faster than I personally expected. Like 3, 4 years ago, I didn't even expect that we can have like machine learning with zero-knowledge proofs. Now it is possible, I mean, maybe with under some particular assumptions. So if I could make a guess, I would say I would wait 3, 4 years until zero-knowledge proof becomes more like mainstream. And we need all of us to work on other protocols now, continue with this work, so they become more familiar.
I actually have a follow-up question on this.
So I was going to ask a last question, but go for it. This is to close, kind of.
It looks like for offline payments, there isn't any obvious solution other than, you know, the secure module in your phone, like deployed in the wild. There's a lot of
There are.
So that was my question. Like, what would you respond to like a team specifying the next digital euro that say, yeah, but anyway, for offline payment, we're going to have a secure module, so why not use it all the way for all privacy?
Obviously, that's the easiest approach, something that I've personally seen literally working on it now. Lightning Network is one of these things, right? I mean, you can lock money to Costco or Whole Foods, and then eventually you can just go tap your card and you pay without internet, and eventually you close the channel one day in the future. Is this offline? You locked your money first, this is online, but after that for, I don't know, you lock $10,000 to Whole Foods, you keep it there, and all of the transactions with Whole Foods is happening off-chain, and eventually you settle once per week. It is possible to have off-chain money, right? This works as a protocol, and you don't need a secure enclave for this.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want to even avoid the settlement on-chain eventually, or even locking the money as a first step? Yes, there it becomes more complex.
Yeah, there are merchants that will never accept non-settled money.
Yes, but if everybody as a user eventually, as we have machine learning, your wallet understands that typically you spend, I don't know, $10,000 in grocery stores and supermarkets, maybe...
Well, you have a lot of spending, man. Are you a huge family?
I have 2 kids. 10,000 per year, I believe it's everybody spending that much. But anyway, I believe there are solutions. I don't know where zero-knowledge proofs can play a role here. Like, we cannot replace the the trust executed environment, right? Because eventually you need to settle it.
Have you seen like a tap that works with Lightning that could be adopted quickly as a...
That's why it's the only possible approach now compared to SGX. There are, like this, there are applications where ZKP doesn't know yet how to solve the problem. Because eventually you have to provide the proof somewhere. And this somewhere should be online, right? What do you do? Yeah, otherwise, you have to play a reputation system. It might be possible if you have, I don't know, some committee off-chain, but again, you have a committee. I don't know if I covered you, but that's my opinion. I prefer ZKP, however.
Thank you very much to both. Just very, like, literally one sentence, kind of like one hopeful thought around how privacy is going to play a role in the future.
Ooh. I really hope that the misunderstandings on the use of the technology will be swiped as soon as people will understand what this brings. There's kind of a bad vibe around privacy for payment, misguided in my opinion, and it's the work of a lot of people to make sure that we realize that this is crucial technology. It's not something to try to brush.
Thank you, John.
Shall I answer as well? I believe the biggest barrier until now is we don't have good IDs to write zero-knowledge proofs. It's a problem. You cannot go to like bachelor students, they write Java, they write JavaScript, they want to write zero-knowledge proof similarly to this.
IDE as in Visual Studio Code.
Yes.
So what is a hopeful thought around that? Like, what do you want to do?
There are already some good steps, right? We have Cairo, we have some others. I believe by now with AI, probably we can even learn how to convert like natural language probably to some zero-knowledge proof statements. And I believe there is some substance there. All of the new IDs should be smart.
Yeah.
And because of this conversion, maybe we can even make optimizations. Because when you just put the whole VM into like zero-knowledge proof, this is not an optimized circuit. This is another problem. And we have risk zero and all of the other stuff, but it's by far more expensive than hard writing the circuit. We have to go to that step. I don't know when we're going to do it. I have a feeling that all of my life, working with banks, with Facebook, now in a startup, this was the major barrier. Even if you hire someone, they cannot know how to very quickly onboard with zero knowledge. They just trust 30 people in the world that these things work. That's the biggest problem, in my opinion.
Thank you
and
very much.
We do progress.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to both of our speakers and to all of the speakers. Very thankful for everybody who came up. We had a panel of 2 seats with 5 people, so that's awesome.